It's like the norm. They would not get it. I think it was charged. I think they're working on getting the lapel mic.
Is it lapel mic?
Yeah, just for the moderator.
Okay, because I probably won't. Okay, well, let me mic him up here. Go ahead and mic you up.
Oh, you're gonna mic me up too? Thank you. Need me say anything? Okay.
We actually
Oh, you got it?
Yep.
So Tiana, anybody else that comes in to register, we'll just keep that list right there.
Feel free to walk about.
Can you take some pictures?
Oh, okay. We have the camera right there.
What? Yes.
Or you want to use your phone?
No, you can take the pictures with the camera.
Point. Point.
That flash right there, boy.
Aim right in here. Yeah. That one. Give it a shot. Right.
Mic'd up.
Good morning to you.
How you feeling?
I'm all right.
That's
I'm doing
good.
all right.
You find out what was up?
No, I still not. I did not go and get checked out. I woke up one morning and I was like, it's not as bad. I know my boyfriend said the same thing. He's like, how bad is your problem?
You're
I'm
like,
too busy.
I'm surviving.
I'm too busy. But listen, I know we're here for a different event. I just want to find out. Do you have like a list of all the events?
Oh, you know what it is?
We're gonna do the event that you sent me for Vienna.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Nice.
So I'm gonna be at that one at the town of Vienna, but the NAACP in Arlington is having something. I'm gonna see if we can pull some of the pastors. Maybe we can do some satellite tables.
Bet.
So, yeah. But I'll just get that.
Oh, she's running on the
Hopefully somebody could come in and promise that.
So I got this mic. I'm supposed to get another mic, right?
Are you Tanya?
I'm Tanya.
Yeah, I'm Hari.
Hi.
I don't feel met.
I don't think we
I
did.
don't think we have. I'm the owner managing partner
Yes,
here,
okay.
and especially we only have one microphone.
Oh, okay.
We have two on the other side.
Okay.
All kinds of.
So,
This is just one.
Yeah,
Can
that's
you
good.
guys
I'll
have
come
this?
down.
Absolutely. We try to get another one.
Oh, the mic is hot. We have a shortage of microphones, so we want to save the microphones for the people who have the most to say. So our moderator will talk using the strength of his voice alone.
All right, so I'll be saving my voice a little bit until
There you go.
we start. Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to get looking right now. No, that's my fault. Oh, thank you.
Respect the candidate's time. We're a little late, but we'll make up for it. Good morning. My name is Sam Wiggins. I'm the CEO of Virginia Minority Chambers, Inc. And we're a relatively new organization that was created to serve minority chambers of commerce, to provide them with a platform for advocacy, resources, and programming. We don't have members, but we believe in partners. We have strong partners. And right now, I'd like to introduce some of our board directors who we're happy that they made it. I'll start with Arnold George. Please stand. Arnold is with Pinnacle Bank. Let's give him a hand. And he will be serving as our vice chair. I also like to ask Scott Price to stand. Scott's with Dominion Energy. And he's just a powerful board director. And then we have Neil McKinnon. Give Neil a hand. Neil will be our chair, and he is also our moderator for today. So let's talk about our partners. Then I'll introduce the candidates. And let me stop and look. Okay, let's talk about phones. So let's make sure we check our phones, make sure our phone's on vibrate, because usually during every event I've been to, a phone goes off and it's a song. So we don't want that today. So I'm glad it's just a ring. But I want to thank our candidates for making the time to do this, because I know you guys are exhausted. In fact, a few of you told me you're exhausted. But you felt strongly enough to come out today to talk to our minority business community, and knowing that this is also being live streamed. So you're reaching a very wide audience. But we thank you, won't hold you long, and we really want to hear what you have to say. And through our questions, we really want you to hear what we have to say, the minority business community. So thank you again. Now I take a moment to talk about our partners. We're partnered with the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, who I have a special affinity to, because right now I'm still chair of that, but rapidly declining. Good. Going off that cliff. Do we have anyone from the Asian American Chamber of Commerce in the house today? Virginia Hispanic Chamber? All right, well, I know we have someone from the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like for her to wave, say hi. This Leanne White is she is the executive director of the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, and they're doing great things. They're doing a great accelerator that was congressionally funded, the only Chamber of Commerce in Northern Virginia, maybe even all of Virginia, to get that kind of funding. So kudos to that. We're happy to have them as a partner. Now, I want to take the time for the coup de grace. I want to introduce our candidates. And again, wonderful candidates. I mean, I've worked with their campaign managers. Their campaign managers are awesome, so they must be fantastic. So I'm going to start in alphabetical order in all fairness. And also, when we do the questioning, we're going to draw names out of the hat, in all fairness too. So we excluded one candidate to just give time enough to review questions because we want no surprises. I'll start with Andrea Bailey. Supervisor Bailey, please stand.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here with you.
Well, we'll make that quick because you're gonna have your chance. It's just an introduction. I'm sorry. Just say hi. Yeah, just wave and say hi and we'll clap.
I'll be your daily supervisor in Prince William County, running for Congressional District 7. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
All right. Who's next on the alphabet? I think it's Margaret Franklin. Supervisor Franklin, please stand.
Hello, thank you all for having us.
Oh, Elizabeth Guzman, please stand. She's come a long way, so give her an extra clap. Thank you for being here.
What is the camera for the audience that is connecting online? Is that the camera? Oh, over there too? Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. All you have to be right here and you will be well covered. All right. Brianna Sewell, please stand. Delegate Sewell. And Colonel Eugene Benman, please stand. Once again, great to have you here. And we have a special treat, not only for our audience, but for our candidates. The current Congresswoman, Abigail Spanberger, decided to give a special word for all of us in lieu of this event.
Hello, everyone. It's Abigail Spanberger, and I am so proud to represent Virginia's 7th District in Congress. And I am sorry that I cannot be with you all today, but I want to thank the Virginia Minority Chambers for putting on an extraordinarily important candidate forum where voters and chamber members will be able to hear from candidates running for the Democratic nomination in the 7th District of Virginia. It's been an extraordinary pleasure to work with all of the individual chambers to support your members and to support our fellow Virginians. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being a part of helping to ensure that people across the 7th District can make an informed decision as they head to the polls. We have extraordinary candidates who are qualified and bring distinct and important perspectives to this candidate forum. And I hope that today's discussions will be important ones for your members to be able to make an informed decision. Just as a reminder, early voting is already open and primary date is June 18th. I look forward to being on the campaign trail with our Democratic nominee because ultimately there is nothing more important than ensuring that we send a qualified, great Democratic candidate to Congress after the November elections. There's a lot on the line this year. I know you all know that, and I know that will be the topic of so many of the questions today. But thank you for the privilege of working with all of you. I look forward to working with you long into the future, and I hope today's forum is excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. And I can assure you she was not driving. This was a safely made video. So I'd like to turn the mic over to Chris Chambers. He is our general counsel, and he would like to discuss the rules of engagement today.
Thank you. And most of the heavy lifting is going to be done by our moderator. So this is just the kind of straight ahead rules. So remember, these are not the Lincoln Douglas debates. This is more of an informational thing given the subject matter. So there won't be any, back and forth or gotcha kind of stuff today. It'll be very straightforward. Each candidate will have up to 8 minutes to give their platform or their presentation. And of course you have, the subject matter contained in the questions that you got. And so, your platform should at least touch on some of them. Then we will draw at the end of that, each person will give that presentation. When that's done, we'll draw names and we'll start with that person we draw first, and we'll start with the questions. Each person will have 5 minutes to answer all the questions. Now, if you spend all 5 minutes on one question, that's how it goes. We'll stop you, then we'll go to the next candidate. Now, there will be 3 minutes at the end when everybody is done with questions. You can probably go back, that's a debate tactic, to go back and maybe rehash another answer, but those 3 minutes are for you to summarize and and give a goodbye, et cetera, et cetera. But if you do have something that you want to rehash from the question and answer, there are 3 extra minutes after we do that 5-minute per candidate Q&A. So those are the rules, and they will be held to a draconian degree. So, that's why they have the lawyer get up and say this stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Neil McKinnon, one of our board members from State Farm. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today, everyone. I appreciate it. As a small business owner and working with a company that serves small business owners, I know how important it is that we have great representation, especially from your area. So thank you, candidates, for making the time today to meet with us. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I am going to be pulling, or Sam's going to pull a name from the hat, and that person will have all right. So, Margaret Franklin. Great seat. Yes. All right. So you come up here. Take your tab. Don't believe me. I'm clumsy too. So.
You can bring whatever crib notes you need.
Yeah. If you want to bring your notes or anything, you have up to 8 minutes to go ahead. And Sam is going to have cards up there to warn you when you're getting down in time. All right, great. Here you go.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you to this organization for hosting us today. I know that it takes a lot to host a forum and be successful at it, so thank you all for taking the time to do that and to be here. My name is Margaret Angela Franklin. I currently serve on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, and I am running for the 7th Congressional District. I do want to talk about and highlight the importance of our small business community, particularly our minority-owned businesses. Many of you may know that minority businesses are the fastest growing businesses in the United States, particularly African-American women-owned businesses are the fastest growing particularly. So the question is, what are we going to do as members of Congress to support that community, to protect that community, and to even expand the work that that community is able to do. Some of the things I'll tell you about myself, I worked on Capitol Hill for about 8 years in both the House and the Senate. I worked for 2 members of Congress who served on the Small Business Committee, where I was in charge of that legislative portfolio. Both as freshman members of Congress, we were able to craft legislation that was bipartisan, doing a number of different things, supporting SBA, expanding some of the lending programs that SBA has, but more importantly, supporting minority contractors. That was one of the bills that Congresswoman Adams had from North Carolina to expand the work that minority contractors can do. In addition, we have to make sure that we are enforcing our minority business goals. Many of you may know that we have federal agencies that have goals towards minority women-owned businesses, towards other minority-owned businesses, and we need to make sure that we're actually enforcing those goals. Now, you guys have been paying attention because you're the small business owners. You know what the Supreme Court has been doing. You've seen what they've done recently with regards to the private equity minority-owned women business that they said was discriminatory in nature. So how can we have a Congress that actually supports those programs and can codify those programs to push back in terms of what the Supreme Court, as we've seen, is willing to do? So we have a lot of work to do. I think one of the things that we need to focus on is supporting the SBA program, not cutting those programs, expanding lending options for SBA, making sure that we provide more access to capital in not only on the federal side, but initiatives and incentives to also support angel investors, making sure that our private equity community, who sometimes gets a bad rap, how can we use them to support minority-owned businesses that oftentimes can't get traditional lending sources? So how can we make sure that they have alternative sources of lending when our traditional banks tend to be more risk adverse these days because of federal regulation? So there are a couple of things that we need to do on that end, but the last thing I'll say, I'm happy to take questions, is, again, we need to make sure that we are heightening and strengthening programs that support minority-owned businesses. I'm a little concerned with the direction that some of those programs have been going in, with the Supreme Court clearly saying that these are discriminatory practices and they shouldn't be actual federal programs. I obviously disagree with that, and I think that we need a Congress that can push back and say we support these programs. We have a diverse community of small businesses, and again, minority-owned businesses, particularly African-American women-owned businesses, are the fastest growing in this country. So if we don't have programs that are tailored and specific to that community, how are we going to support the larger small business community in general? So those are things to take into consideration that I'm willing to work on as a member of Congress. Thank you for taking questions.
Okay, well, question number one. Both nationally and across the Commonwealth, including the 7th District, current workforce policies and programs are facing three critical challenges. One, creating more well-paying jobs and skilled workers to fill them, especially those that might not require a 4-year bachelor's degree in tech, manufacturing, and trade sectors. Two, generating a growing workforce as baby boomers retire. And three, preparing for labor markets dislocations associated with artificial intelligence, while also training workers from disadvantaged households or traditionally depressed neighborhoods. What specific ideas or solutions do you have for meeting the critical challenges in Virginia, and how can your presence in the U.S. Capitol foster solutions?
Thank you for that. A couple of different issues raised there. I'll start with the workforce in general. We have a different looking workforce today than we did 4 years ago, pre-COVID. I think we also have a generation of young people that are turning to the workforce post-graduation, post-high school graduation, and even college, that are not willing to work in the same traditional workforce that we and those before us have worked in. So number one, we have to make sure that our businesses are able to adapt and evolve into a new workspace. The truth of the matter is, not everyone is interested in going in person every single day. Now, we know that that has hurt some of our small businesses, particularly in the restaurant industry. We can't get that lunch crowd. It's hurt some of our transportation contractors because people aren't taking public transportation as much as they have in the past. And so there are some challenges with that. But how can we evolve to where we say, well, maybe a full 5-day, 80-hour work week is not what we do post-COVID, but how can we also make sure that we're providing incentives and federal support to those minority businesses that are impacted by the lack of, I would say, lack of business coming from what they used to have. So that's the number one thing. We have to make sure that our business community is able to evolve, both on the resource side as well as the workforce side. You mentioned AI. AI is going to be something that is going to continue to be incredibly important moving forward in terms of our business community, the federal government, as well as our economy at large. We ought to be figuring out how to both regulate AI, but also allow for innovation and creativity with AI as well. How can we use AI to strengthen our businesses without taking over our businesses in terms of the actual employment and workforce? I know that in Congress, both in the Senate and House side, there are several working groups to address AI and how do you properly regulate them without cramping them with so much regulation that they can't actually be beneficial. Small businesses are going to have an interesting time in terms of developing the technology to continue to move forward. But again, I think that's where Congress and federal government comes in and making sure that SBA has the resources to give you guys, making sure that we have legislation that provides for that innovation, and making sure that our minority-owned businesses are not left out of the AI and the digital divide. So I think those things are going to be critically important. I think the last thing I'll just say, because you mentioned about certain skill sets, we do have a number of high schools that have STEM programs. Not everyone is going to go off to college. And so we need to make sure also on the education front that we're providing resources to our high schools throughout the country to make sure that they are providing skill sets, both intellectually for those that are going to go off to liberal arts universities or those that want to go into construction trades. So that's going to be incredibly important, making sure that both levels of graduates are taken care of and have options post-graduation.
Thank you for your response. Question number 2. What can you do in Congress to ensure access to capital from microloans to lines of credit for minority businesses in your district and throughout the Commonwealth generally? Because despite some state and federal programs, the help doesn't seem to be getting to the minority business owners. And there seems to be a disconnect between them and various private lending institutions.
Sure, yeah, the challenges that I've seen is kind of been twofold. One, access to capital in the private market with regards to microloans. And then, as you mentioned in the question, not enough of those federal resources getting down to minority-owned businesses. So one thing we have to do is just straight up making sure that we, again, strengthening SBA to make sure that those programs are going directly to minority-owned businesses. Now, there's a challenge, again, because we've seen what the Supreme Court has been doing lately with regards to some of those types of programs. So we're gonna have a lot of work to do, but I think through Minority Business Development Agency as well as SBA, there can be ways to make sure that we craft legislation to guarantee that those resources are going to our small businesses. The other thing is we have to figure out how to continue incentivizing our traditional banks to provide micro lending to small businesses. We've seen since the financial crisis that because of both regulations, which I think was important, but also making sure that those regulations aren't so tight that the people that get hurt the most are minority-owned businesses, which I think we've seen a little bit of those financial crises. And so we need to make sure that our traditional banking sources, our Banks of America, our Citibanks, are confident that you can lend to small business and micro businesses without thinking that you're going to not get those returns on those loans. I think the other thing is, and I mentioned this earlier, we have to make sure that we're providing support for angel investors. We're pushing the private equity community to get more involved in small business and micro lending, and making sure that those micro businesses and small businesses have as many resources to choose from as possible. I've worked with a number of small businesses in the Route 1 corridor in Prince William County who, to the point of the question, cannot get those particular loans. Their businesses is too small. They don't have enough backing financially to show that they're credit worthy. So where do those businesses go? They just want to start a cake business. They just want to open their food truck, but they've never done it before, so they don't have anything financially to show for it. We have to make sure that federally we're providing that support. Last thing I'll say to that point is, when COVID hit, I actually led the effort to create a small business grant program to help small businesses with PPE, as well as with just straight up keeping their businesses open. We were successful in doing that across the county, and we are currently working on a microloan program where it is a loan program, so we do want our small businesses to be able to repay that back so we can continue to make loans. But that's something that we've recognized pretty early on that was important.
Okay, and you may not have time to fully answer this, but we'd love to get your take on it. Question number 3. Currently, the minimum wage in Virginia is $12 per hour, rising to $15 in 2026. The federal minimum wage for non-exempt employees is $7.25. What are your thoughts on both the Virginia minimum wage and the federal minimum wage? In minimum wage, wages were on either the federal level, and how do you balance a possible burden on minority and small businesses who might have to pay out the amount if they rely on hourly employees?
Absolutely, I'll just take it quick. I am supportive of 15 minimum wage. I am also aware of the challenges that places both on minority-owned business and small business community in general. I've always said, and there have been discussions in Congress about how do we provide resources to small businesses to help them reach that minimum wage while not also shuttering their business. So I think there has to be a way to do both, and I think there is with the will. So I support an increase, and I think most small businesses support making sure that their workers get paid as much as possible. But the other part of that is we need to step in and make sure that they have the resources to actually do that, and I'm committed to that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. One thing to note for the candidates, if you're caught in a question and your time's running out, we'll let you finish the answer. So we won't cut you off.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna draw next candidate. I'm drawing this one. So we have Elizabeth Guzman.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. So you will have 8 minutes, and then you'll be able to take some questions afterwards, okay?
Sure.
Great.
Well, good morning. I am former State Delegate Elizabeth Guzman, and I would like to thank the Virginia Minority Chambers. Thank you for organizing this event and for the job that you have been doing to boost economic development here in the Commonwealth, as well as creating a balance to create high-paying jobs. So thank you for what you're doing for our community. For those who don't know me, I'm a social worker, a public administrator. I'm a mother of 4 children, and my husband is, in fact, a small business owner of a tile installation company. A little bit about my story is I came to this country with $300 in my pocket and a little girl. When I got here, I had to work 3 minimum wage jobs to get to live in Northern Virginia and to qualify a 1-bedroom apartment. However, this country has shown me that anyone who's willing to sacrifice and work hard will be able to achieve the American dream. And with that, the support of my family, I've been able to go to college while working full-time and raising my children. I'm a proud alumni of Northern Virginia Community College, and I have 2 master's degrees, one in public administration and a second one in social work. I got involved in politics when there was a discriminatory law coming after my family and people who look like my family. So what I did is I started mobilizing my community and led the effort to repeal that law and also unseat those supervisors who voted for that discriminatory law. And with that, we flipped the County Board of Supervisors. In 2016, my son Carlos, and we are a proud Hispanic family, came to me and asked me that we needed to go. He was born in Virginia and told me that we have to go back to Peru where I was born, because he was afraid of what's happening at that moment of life. I could see the fear within through his eyes, and that ignited the fire within me to run for office. In 2017, I was elected and I flipped my district red to blue after 26 years by double digits. And I introduced 100 pieces of legislation that are related to the state level. And I was proud to serve in the legislature when Virginia was #1 for businesses. But at the same time, we started from being dead last for working families, and we are number 23. And I think that is something that we should celebrate. As a wife of small business owners, my vision is that we can have a Commonwealth where businesses succeed, but also working families thrive. And as far as my job experience, for those who the state legislature is only a part-time job with full-time responsibilities. However, you have to have a full-time job in order to pay your bills. And I've been a proud public sector worker. I worked for over 2 decades in local government here in Virginia. I work in early childhood education, in school administration, and the last 10 years in mental health services. I work for the city of Alexandria, where I oversee a budget of $20 million and lead a workforce of 200 essential staff. We provide services to individuals who are facing substance use disorders on the front lines for the fentanyl and opioid crisis. We help seniors facing food insecurity and more. Well, as the wife of the small business owner, I have seen firsthand the struggles, how small business owners have to go through in order to succeed on this Commonwealth. For that reason, while I was working at the state legislature, I co-patroned a bill that changed the process to appeal at the denial of certification when you wanted to become a small business owner. Also, at the same time as we're getting resources from the federal government, and those have to be administered through the state government, I co-patroned a bill that added more transparency and accounting of loans and grants by the Virginia small business federal authorities to ensure that those funds are disbursed in an equitable manner, ensuring that we are looking at the size of the business, the geographics, but also race. because that's extremely important. I was serving in the legislature through the pandemic, I was proud to support a conformity bill that provided $38 million to small business owners here in the Commonwealth. And we also put money into the unemployment insurance because we knew that business owners will be hurt by the amount of unemployment claims. So we helped with that. So we have been working in Richmond for the last 6 years to ensure that you as business owners have the resources to deal with the changing consumer landscape that we face in this Commonwealth. We have 7,500 veteran business owners in the Commonwealth, and I probably represented the largest amount of military families in my old district. So I ensured that military families had the resources to start their business, but also help their children to adjust on the Commonwealth as they have to move from state to state. During my tenure in Richmond, I've been named Legislator of the Year by the Virginia Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers. There were some questions about climate change and how we support the businesses to deal with that change as well. I have A+ ratings by the Sierra Club every year that I serve in Richmond. I've been named Legislator of the Year by the the League of Conservation Voters. And also it's important to note that 1 out of 4 business owners in the Commonwealth are business owners of color. So that is something that we should celebrate. But at the same time, while we are in Congress, we need to ensure that every law that we pass or enact or adjust, we need to understand the consequences that is going to have on small businesses and minority businesses as we make decisions. Our district is also 35% rural, so we need to help those farmers to become farm owners and help those small farmers to also stay in business and train their children through school programs and through other resources so they can, because while we are #1 for business in Virginia, the #1 industry is the agro-business industry, and that's something that we need to highlight. And I would say that I look forward to the conversation, and I look forward to represent you in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you. And you didn't have to rush through the end right there. You had a minute left. It's okay.
I'm Latina, so when we talk, we rush. So I really have to pace myself here and slow down.
It's okay. It's okay. All right. So question number 1, same question that we had previously. Both nationally and across the Commonwealth, including the 7th District, current workforce policies and programs are facing 3 critical challenges. 1, creating more well-paying jobs and skilled workers to fill them, especially those that might not require a 4 years bachelor's degree in tech, manufacturing, and the trade sectors. 2, generating a growing workforce as baby boomers retire. And 3, preparing for the labor market's dislocations associated with artificial intelligence, while also training workers from disadvantaged households or traditionally depressed neighborhoods. What specific ideas or solutions do you have for meeting these critical challenges in Virginia, and how can your presence in the U.S. Capitol foster these solutions?
Sure. So I would say that we have set the ground game here in the Commonwealth at the state legislature, where we are just waiting for the resources to come from the federal government. And I would start with saying that we have to invest more in vocational and technical education. I've been proud to announce yesterday that I've been endorsed by the Virginia State Association of Electrical Workers, who are on the front lines creating those partnerships in between workers and in between contractors, so they go and train contractors so they could get this job. We need to do more of that. In Prince William County, where my children go to school, there are plenty of opportunities for children to go into multiple trade schools. Like my son is in the culinary school, while my daughter is in the advanced AP program. So that's something that we need to invest as more and look for those resources. We have to support no-degree credentials, because as a mother of 4 children, my oldest daughter didn't finish her degree. However, she's doing an amazing job for Senator Warner, handling his case immigration works, and that's something that she's passionate about. So the senator is helping her with the skills that she needs in order to succeed and do a better job. We also have to see that the growing of the workforce is as baby boomers are retiring. where are we going to find this new talent? And I think there are great opportunities on those dreamers, DACA students that are looking to stay permanently in this country, and that's something that we have to do as well. We have to, the question was also about AI technology, and while we are thankful, of being able to get access to technology, we also need to be aware that technology, number one, we have to look at the guidelines and see how that technology has been implemented in other countries, because it has been, and we are not the first, but we should be looking at those lessons learned. But at the same time, how are we going to help those workers that are going to be displaced by that technology as well? So we need to promote lifelong learning initiatives, and we can do that fostering solutions in Congress, but introducing legislation and passing legislation who's going to fund workforce development. And of course, all of these, it takes a village to create change, and it has to be a strong partnership in between federal government, state government, and local government, because we have to be on the same page when we're looking at business and we're helping them thrive.
Thank you. Question 2. What can you do in the U.S. Congress to ensure the capital from microloans to lines of credit What can you do in the U.S. Congress to ensure that the access to the capital from microloans to lines of credit for minority businesses in your district and the Commonwealth generally? Because despite some states' federal programs, the help doesn't seem to be getting to minority business owners, and there seems to be a disconnect between them and the various private lending institutions.
Yeah, I think that with the microloans is good to start up, but it's not enough. You can only get up to $13,000, but then what is next? What can you afford to have, to pay for your business? However, I would like to implement and diversify different lines of credit so they could be there. And you can pay that loan as you are using them. But we have to have those opportunities, because those are the ones that are going to allow you to grow your business, to make new investments in order to succeed in the Commonwealth. We also would like to invest, of course, and to expand the Minority Business Development Agency so we can create tax incentives for banks for those who are helping the minority businesses. We have to be intentional about it. Because if we just, as you mentioned, if we just put it on the law and we specify where those loans are going to be directed to, then always the big fish is going to eat the small fish. So we need to ensure that everybody gets great access. We need to engage with local organizations and work with minority chambers like you to ensure that you are providing us the information of what is happening in the field in order for us to make informed decisions and advocate for what you need.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good. Here we go. All right. Next candidate up is Andrea Bailey. Good morning, Ms. Bailey. So you have 8 minutes to give your speech, and then we'll ask you the questions afterwards, okay?
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you. Well, good morning again, and allow me to say my apologies for being a tad bit late. My mama told me when you are wrong, Andrea, say excuse me. So please excuse me for being a little late this morning. I am very happy to be here with the Virginia Minority Chamber because I think that your institution, your organization is absolutely a stimulant to make sure that minority businesses are engaged in our community and thriving. I'm an inner city kid from St. Louis, Missouri. You'll hear me say that all the time because I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the foundation that my mom and my dad and my grandma and great-grandma instilled in me to be before you today. What does that mean? That means that not only am I an inner city kid from the public school system, but I'm a mother who's raised a son that works in private industry, but understands the value of the dollar. I'm also a veteran's wife, married to a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, for 23 years. So I understand the importance of supporting the veterans in our community. But I'm also a small business owner. In 2003, I started a small business in event planning. And it was excellent, an excellent experience for an individual that had come out of corporate America for 20 years to have their own business and for it to thrive. And then I became a politician, but I'm no longer a politician. I'm merely an elected official here to serve. So why do I say all that? I say all of that because I believe that we live in a time right now where our country is growing. We need a stimulant in our country to move it forward so that the next generation can thrive as well. I come before you this morning as an elected official on the Board of County Supervisors in Prince William County. My decision to do that and coming out of corporate America was merely an opportunity to serve at a higher level, to make sure that with the skill set that I bring to the table as a corporate citizen, as a fundraiser for non-for-profits in our community and in our region, and as a veteran's wife, but also as a small business owner, I had something to offer to the community to make sure that I'm leaving something behind. Now, as a child in the public school system, I gotta tell you, my mom could not afford programs for K through 12 that some mothers and fathers could. But because of my second grade teacher, that stimulated me not only to understand the necessity for our students in this community and in our country to have the programs that they need, but it also instilled in me to understand that education is absolutely the key to the next step in life and for future generations. And so, as an elected official, I am very much infused and stimulated to make sure that our public school system thrives for the next generation. As a corporate citizen, I understand the importance because I've been able to institute those programs between private industry and small businesses when I worked in corporate. I had an opportunity, as an example, to work as the HR director to make sure that those programs for a program called NMCI, which integrated the intranet between the Navy and the Marine Corps. And so I've seen how small businesses can grow and thrive from an entity of that nature. So why am I running right now? I'm running because I believe that my leadership is needed in Congress. I believe that with all the development, professional development I've had in my life, that I can go to Congress and make sure that I represent not just a few, but all, to make sure that this country is moving forward. And so I thank you for an opportunity, for a platform to let you know who this little inner city kid is from St. Louis, Missouri, that I want to go forward to leave something behind for those that are coming behind me, the next generation, something that is strong, something that is stimulant, something that is workable, something that is true to the next generation. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you with is this. I believe that my legacy in this role as your next congressperson, my legacy will be to leave for the younger folk behind me to understand that there was someone who cared about them to have a foundation for their lives, to have benefits for their lives, to have education for their lives, and not pay out of their pockets for their education. I believe that it's time for my leadership to go to Congress because of the skill set, and because of the foundation that I have in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, same questions. Both nationally and all across the Commonwealth, including the 7th District, current workforce policies and programs are facing three critical challenges. One, creating more well-paying jobs and skilled workers to fill them, especially those that might not require a 4 years bachelor degree in tech, manufacturing, and trade sectors. Two, generating a growing workforce as baby boomers retire. And three, preparing for the labor market's dislocations associated with artificial intelligence, while also training workers from disadvantaged households or traditionally depressed neighborhoods. What specific ideas or solutions do you have from me? What specific ideas or solutions do you have for meeting these critical challenges in Virginia? And how can your presence in the U.S. Capitol foster these solutions?
Thank you for the question.
No problem.
I think that, first of all, we need to create federal funding programs in our nation, but specifically in the region in CD7. I think that we need to secure local programs or tax incentives for local programs in this region. I think that we have to put stronger regulations around AI, but I think it is a tool that we need in our country. But there needs to be parameters around AI. I also believe that we need to create a workforce that can manage AI, institute AI in our nation, but make sure that those incentives, those tax incentives, pay off for that workforce. I think that there should be programs that we develop in our colleges and universities that will train them on how to institute those programs in our communities. I think all of that is important. I think that enables us to move forward in our country with the tools that we have right now to make sure that the next generation is thriving. That AI is one of those tools.
Thank you. What can you do in U.S. Congress to ensure that access to capital from microloans to lines of credits for minority businesses in your district and the Commonwealth generally? Because despite some of the state and federal programs, the help doesn't seem to be getting to minority business owners. And there doesn't seem to be a disconnect between them and various private lending institutions.
So let me just say, as a former small business owner, I've had the advantage of applying for microloans. I've had the advantage of utilizing microloans. And I've also had the unfortunate advantage of not being supported in understanding microloans. So with all of that, I think it is very much imperative that we put together programs that the banking institutions understand and can absolutely support, and also can govern the small business owner. I think that needs to be a partnership there. But I think that it needs to be programs that go beyond microloans. I think that the sustainability of small businesses, or any business in our country, the way that those institutions stimulate our economy, there needs to be continuity for them to thrive, longevity for them to thrive, and for them to have hope and their dreams and the visions that they have for their businesses. So I think there's an opportunity federally that we need to establish legislation with our banking institutions to assure that once those opportunities are created, that they are supported with training, that they are supported with sustainability, that they are supported not only for their benefit, but for the small business benefit as well. So that stimulation that the small business owner offers will be continual, sustainable, and a longevity perspective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question 3.
Yes.
Currently, the minimum wage in Virginia is $12 an hour, rising to $15 in 2026. The federal minimum wage for non-exempt employees is $7.25. What are your thoughts on both the Virginia minimum wage and the federal minimum wage? If minimum wages were raised on either the federal or state level, how would you balance the possible burden on minority and small businesses who might have to pay out that amount if they have to rely on hourly employees?
Well, when you talk about minimum wage, I remember when I first had my first job making $3.10 an hour. And then when I went to high school making a little bit more, but now we're at $7.25. That's not a livable wage. And I absolutely would support an increase of $15 or more, because we live in a world where the needs are different. And that's why legislation needs to be changed. I believe that we're living by old legislation. And so reformation, as it relates to our workforce, is absolutely an imperative. I think when I go to Congress, I know when I go to Congress, that'll be something that I will absolutely work on to make sure that our economy is strong. I believe that we need to explore possible tax and business credits as incentives for businesses. I think that's important as we go forward with that. And I think we need to take a page out of, I've been reading about the McDonald's franchises and how they are reforming their programs and their minimum wage and how it benefits their employees. And so I think perhaps a program such as that to have incentives for employees as it relates to longevity and sustainability, then maybe we might take a page out of their book to assure that when we increase the minimum wage, that it's good, it's strong, but it also benefits the employee in a long-term basis.
Thank you. All right, question 4. Right-wing activist Edward Bloom has vowed to destroy all forms of affirmative action and diversity initiatives, not only in the public sector, but in the private sector businesses as well. The Supreme Court of 2023's decision in the Students for Fair Admissions Act to limit the use of race in college admissions has had a significant impact on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. There have also been several lawsuits challenging grants to minority-owned businesses, including programs for Black entrepreneurs and women of color. What can you do in Congress to fight for the efforts to restore these long-held principles and justice and equity?
Let me begin, thank you for that question. Let me begin by saying equity in everything that we do is imperative, in everything that we do. I sit on boards currently, particularly the Council of Government boards, where we're talking about equity in environment and sustainability, equity in education, equity. Equity is imperative. I would absolutely support what is existing right now. I know Congressman Bobby Scott has an initiative that he is investigating and delving into this. And I think diversity and inclusion in our world, we cannot live without it. And so for me, making sure that we are looking at things and expanding things with Pell Grants. Back in the day, Pell Grants were called BEOG. You may not know anything about that. It was called BEOG. I received the BEOG grant. So I think it's imperative that we enhance in terms of funding. We reform the Pell Grant because I think it's some students can't exist without it. Some students were not built with a silver spoon in their mouths. And so they have to have other opportunities to excel, to be a conduit for the next generation, for the next for the next increase in our community or educationally. So I think it's important. I think it's very important that we think of other creative ways and funding to make sure that as we move forward in our nation, the richest nation in the world, that we have these type of programs that's available to all students, especially those students that may not have an opportunity to pay for their education.
Thank you, and thank you for your time and your response. Really appreciate it. Yep. All right. You're up. Okay, you have 8 minutes as the other candidates did.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, and here you go.
Okay, thank you, Neil, for moderating this conversation. Thank you, Sam, Chris, and Tanya. And thank you to the Virginia Minority Chambers. My family came to this country in 1979, fleeing from a communist, bigoted dictatorship. The 5 of us, we had less than $800 in our pocket. And we had each other, not much else, and we had faith in the American dream. And that faith, hard work, education has gotten us to where we are today. So I want to make sure I provide that same opportunity to future generations. I mean, think about today, D-Day, June 6th. It's a pretty momentous, historic day, the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. What our forebearers fought for, many sacrificed their lives. We need to make sure that their sacrifice was not in vain. So when I was old enough, and when my brothers were old enough, we joined the Army out of a deep sense of gratitude to this nation. And my twin brother and I, we served a couple of decades in uniform. We fought for the values that we grow up at home and for the military values to make sure that when we defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that those freedoms were available to future generations. Spent 25 years in the Army, half of it as a paratrooper and infantry officer, and the other half as a lawyer. I've had the privilege of leading some of America's finest, and I've been a prosecutor, I've been an advisor at the White House, I've been a lawyer, a contract and fiscal lawyer, actually working on SBA loans and Section 8A. So these are topics that I'm very much familiar with. And in 2019, it's hard to believe, but it'll be 5 years next month when our values were tested. During the first impeachment, prior to the first impeachment, my twin brother and I worked at the White House National Security Council. He listened to the now infamous phone call when Donald Trump attempted to extort a foreign leader to interfere in our election. And he reported the call to me. I was the ethics lawyer at the White House, and we reported the call together. And so we've stood up for our values. That's a long way of telling you that we have a certain set of values that we live by. We've stood up for those values. And that's what I intend to do as a member of Congress representing the 7th Congressional District. The reason I'm running is because I believe our country is at a crossroads. We have a momentous decision, and we hear it quite often. Every 4 years or so, we hear that this is the most critical election of our lifetime. Well, it just so happens that this is the most critical election of our lifetime because we have two paths this year. We have a path where we continue to make steady progress, we continue to grow, we continue to treat all people with dignity, respect, and provide opportunities. We have a much darker path, a return to the past. In many cases, not a great past for many Americans. And when it became very clear to me that the stakes that we faced, I decided to run for office. I believe in strong schools. I'm a product of public school education. Education for my immigrant family was a critical avenue to self-improvement, to making it to the middle class. My kids are products of public school educations, and frankly, as we get into some of the questions, we'll talk about why I think public school education is a important, critical element that we need to focus on in order to build the synergies for a brighter future for all. I think infrastructure is a major issue that we need to focus on. We're Virginia 7th, about 20 miles south of DC, just outside the capital, but it's a large district with rural areas. And so we need infrastructure as a sort of a second leg of a stool, education, infrastructure to build in this district and really across the country in order to advance, in order to keep our economy growing. And finally, I think we also have an obligation on the world stage. If you think about what's made this country prosperous over the course of the last 80 years, as we reflect on D-Day and those that made that sacrifice, it's the fact that we built a system where things are predictable, right? What do businesses rely on? Businesses rely on knowing what the rules are, predictability. And some of those systems are now under threat. So making sure that understanding that even small business owners in Virginia frequently are subcontractors to larger corporations and organizations around the world, that we have a stable international system. And so protecting that. The last thing I'll mention is that, we're sort of on a precipice of some revolutions in this country. Over the course of the last 40 or so years, major businesses have swallowed up smaller businesses, have developed monopolies that have totally unbalanced how labor, how consumers and small businesses can operate in an ecosystem. And rebalancing that from mega corporations, breaking up some trusts, which is what this administration is doing, is actually not a bad thing. I'm a small business owner. I retired from the Army a little over a year and a half ago. My twin brother and I started a consulting company. We know what it's like to deal with regulations. We know what it's like to make payroll. And so I look at what this chamber has, the main priorities of this chamber from a point of understanding what those priorities may be. So with that, I'll go to questions.
Thank you. Here's a new question. No, I'm just joking. Question number 1. Both nationally and across the Commonwealth, including the 7th District, current workforce policies and programs are facing—
I've memorized it. You can, no, go ahead, please.
I'm going to stop that. Are facing 3 critical challenges. 1, creating more well-paying jobs for skilled workers to fill them, especially those that might not require a 4 years bachelor degree in tech, manufacturing, and trade sectors. 2, generating a growing workforce as baby boomers retire. And 3, preparing for the labor market's dislocation associated with artificial intelligence while training workers from disadvantaged households or traditionally depressed neighborhoods. What specific ideas or solutions do you have for meeting these critical challenges in Virginia, and how can your presence in the U.S. Capitol foster these solutions?
So I guess I'll start with the last one first. People know me as an ethics lawyer from the White House, but I had a much broader portfolio. I was also the legal advisor to everything that happened in Africa. I was the legal advisor for international organizations and human rights issues. And I was the legal advisor to an emerging technologies directorate. And so that means from the highest level in government on the National Security Council, I advised the administration, departments and agencies on emerging technologies and how to foster our emerging technologies, how to deal with emerging technologies. And so AI obviously is one of those technologies. Having leaders that understand emerging technologies is absolutely critical. And so when you're thinking about what kind of leaders that you want to bring into Congress, the representation that you want in Congress, you want people that are conversant in these topics. So AI will be a revolution. By some of the smartest people in the world think it may be the biggest revolution that humanity has ever gone through. So how do you prepare for that? Well, I'm not sure that we can possibly think about all the ways to prepare for it, but understanding the technology, some of the ramifications, being nimble, is really the best way to address these topics. So it's obviously going to have a major impact on the workforce. It's going to have a major impact, we already know, on education. It's only a couple of years old, and people are using ChatGPT as a base for or a framework for responses to questions or developing essays and things like that. So I think a lot of it is about adaptability. The second thing, and sort of related to this, is training and education, and making sure that our kids, I've got 2 kids that are in school. Son's in middle school, son is in college, daughter's in middle school. So I want to make sure that they receive the education that they need. And not only focusing on the pipeline to college, but also to trade and tech. There are absolutely jobs that AI is frankly not going to be able to do, at least not in the near future. And so a lot of that is in trades. I'll leave it there.
Oh, no, you're good. All right. Thank you. Question 2, what can you do in U.S. Congress to ensure that access to capital from microloans to lines of credits for minority businesses in your district and the Commonwealth generally, because despite the state and federal programs to help, there seems to be a disconnect between the various private lending institutions?
Yeah, so this is a major issue. A lot of this is through SBA, but microloans. This comes back to the structural issue. And when we think about the leadership and we're talking about national office, federal Congress, you want to think about how these issues will affect nationally, but also resource locally. So we have mega banks, we have financial institutions that all of their incentive is to service other entities like them. They're guaranteed steady streams, right? So small businesses are not something that most of these institutions care about. And so creating pathways and channels for small businesses to get these resources are critical. Following the resources or the policies that are already on the books are critical. And so I have 1 minute left. I'll try to answer one more, but I'll leave it at that.
All right, great, thank you. Current minimum wage in Virginia is $12 an hour, rising to $15 in 2026. The federal minimum wage for non-exempt employees is $7.25. What are your thoughts on both the Virginia minimum wage and the federal minimum wage if the minimum wage were to be raised at either the state or federal level? And how would you balance the possible burden on minority businesses and small businesses who might have to pay out the amount if they rely on hourly employees?
Sure. So first of all, I would say huge corporations, this is not really a major problem for them. This is a problem for small businesses. So tax incentives to small businesses is one way I would address this issue. Look, businesses, right? Entrepreneurs, they've created a business to make a profit, to make a living for themselves and their families. And so you do that by having the best employees you can hire, and you get the best employees that you can hire by paying them a wage that they can live on. I think the fact that the federal minimum wage has not increased in quite some time, it's time for that minimum wage to increase to $15 an hour. Small businesses ought to get some sort of tax benefit to defray the costs, and large businesses and mega corporations will just have to pay those and not transfer their obligations to the federal government to pay in social services or social welfare programs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your responses and your time. All right, last but not least. Thank you, Brianna. So you'll have 8 minutes to give your notes, and then we'll ask you some questions, okay?
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for affording me the opportunity to be before you. I am Delegate Brianna Sewell, and I am running to be your next Congresswoman here in the 7th Congressional District. A little bit about me: I was born and raised in the 7th Congressional District in the Prince William County portion. I am the daughter of 2 Air Force veterans and the granddaughter of a foot soldier from the Civil Rights Movement. So, as you can imagine, service beyond self has been deeply instilled in me. And it's what's led me to standing before you. Little did I know that my personal story would help lead me to meet this moment. As someone who matriculated through the public school system in Prince William County in 2007, 2008, we all remember that that's when we were dealing with a Great Recession. Our businesses were shuttered. We were experiencing with housing foreclosures. And in the midst of that in Prince William County, individuals were being profiled by the color of their skin and being told that they didn't belong and being questioned on whether or not they should be able to live in that community. So as someone who literally crosses the Edmund Pettus Bridge to get to my grandmother's house, the idea of my neighbors being treated as other, and especially being a Black female, was another something that sat well with me. So I went off to college. I obtained a degree in public policy and sociology, focusing on social stratification, a lot of what we're talking about right now. I obtained a master's degree in public administration with a concentration in policy analysis, and I immediately went home to get to work in the community that raised me, that poured into me. And I began my career working for Congressman Connolly as his Prince William District Director. And that's where I met many of you in this room, quite frankly, and would regularly attend chamber events to make sure that our businesses knew that we were accessible and available, and there's someone on the ground who wanted to understand their needs, not only as a business owner or a staff member, but more importantly, as a resident of our community. And with that, I went on to work for the Virginia Campaign for a Family-Friendly Economy, where we focused our efforts on making sure that we were celebrating women and their role within the workforce, but also within their respective families. And not simply through control of that pocketbook, but also making sure that they had the resources that they needed to retain that ability to be influential figures, not only within their home, but also within the job market. So that meant pushing for legislation at the state and federal levels that supported working women to make sure that if there was a birth of a child or life happened, they needed to take care of themselves or their loved one, that they had the ability to do so without losing that roof over their head. And knowing that that particular job and that workforce would know that there would be an employee who would come back to that particular role and keep them whole. We also made sure that we were making those significant investments in education to make sure that individuals could go off to college if they so chose, and to not feel as if they were going to break the bank in order to do so. We also invested in childcare affordability, a continuing issue before so many of our employers as well as employees who are working every day to make sure that we are able to bring down that rate. As we know, in the 7th Congressional District, for so many families, childcare is actually more than in-state tuition at one of our fine universities. And as a result, so many people end up staying home or coming up with an alternate plan to provide that financial security for their families. And lastly, we recognize here in the Commonwealth of Virginia that we have individuals who are aging in place, and we're so grateful for that. So one of our fastest growing populations is our seniors. And with that, we want to make sure that they have the ability to have the resources that they need. But I stand before you here today as a candidate for Congress because I think it's exceptionally important that our next Congresswoman is someone who understands the needs of the district. And that begins with listening. So I had the pleasure of walking around and talking to so many of you before this event, and I look forward to continuing those conversations in the future. But it is my belief firmly that as a legislator, that the only way that you can effectively legislate is if you know the issues of your district. So as a member of the House of Delegates, I have a rule that I only carry pieces of legislation that are based upon community conversations that I've had. So whether it's at one of the formal town halls and bill workshops that I host, or simply from knocking on doors with constituents, these are the conversations that really matter. And it's led me to being named one of the 20 most effective state legislators in our nation under the age of 40. And I was able to accomplish that as a Democrat under a Republican governor, because at the end of the day, the values that we're talking about are focused on people and not party. With that, I am excited to take some questions, but I will note that I also serve on multiple committees down in Richmond, but I serve on the Appropriations Committee, which focuses on our state budget. I serve on the Education Committee. I serve on the Transportation Committee, and County, Cities, and Towns. Many of the issues that impact our chambers every single day. And I serve as the chair of multiple subcommittees, and one is higher education, another is land use, and I also serve as the chair of all matters dealing with the Department of Motor Vehicles. So when we're talking about our roadways and we're talking about making those essential investments to make sure that your power is restored in a timely fashion, those are the issues which come before me. So between that and the 8 year-round commissions and boards which I serve on, to include the Housing Commission, PRTC, and our Opioid Abatement Authority, I will touch on many of the issues that are before each of us today, but I just want to offer that insight. And as we continue on with some questions, I will simply just make it clear that for America to build a healthy and inclusive economy, minority businesses must have what they need in order to thrive, as they are a key component to both our local, state, and our federal contracting opportunities. So thank you again for having me, and I'm happy to take questions.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, question number 1. Both nationally and across the Commonwealth, including the 7th District, current workforce policies and programs are facing 3 critical challenges. 1, creating more well-paying jobs and skilled workers to fill them, especially those that might not require a 4 years bachelor degree in tech, manufacturing, or trade sectors. 2, generating a growing workforce as baby boomers retire. And 3, preparing the labor market's dislocation associated with artificial intelligence, while also training workers from disadvantaged households or traditionally depressed neighborhoods. What specific ideas or solutions do you have for meeting these critical challenges in Virginia? And how can your presence in the U.S. Capitol foster these solutions?
Well, thank you so much for that question. I will simply begin by noting that I fully support vocational and apprenticeship opportunities. When it comes to our economy and ensuring that everyone has what they need to thrive, whether you choose to go through a formal education at the higher education level, or you simply choose to enter into one of those trades, it's essential that every resident of the 7th has what they need. And there are so many opportunities to make that happen. When it comes to formal education, I'm happy to share that I have fully supported efforts at the state level to make sure that we are investing in those key targeted industries where we recognize that we have a great deal of vacancies. So some of the programs that we're offering here at the moment focus on education, innovation, in particular around science, tech, and engineering, and making sure that in-state students out-of-state students who wish to attend one of our in-state HBCUs, public HBCUs, has the ability to do so under in-state tuition once they've already made the commitment to the program. So after 30 credits, they're able to apply for in-state tuition and also commit to staying here and becoming a lovely resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia to help us grow our businesses. I also have had the great pleasure of working, as I noted, and recognizing that our populations are aging in place, and that's an industry in itself. That is workforce, caregiving is a component of it, but also reimagining the way that we think about housing for the future. So at a time when we're talking about affordable housing, this is not a crisis that we can nationally build our way out of. It's also going to require us to make significant investments in affording additional grant opportunities around the weatherizing of homes, as well as making sure that we're providing remodeling assistance. And that's part of making sure that people can age in place gracefully, and I look forward to fully supporting that. As far as AI is concerned, these are concerns that I hear every single day. In the 7th Congressional District, we have a great partnership between one of our community colleges, Germana, and they have a fantastic CDL program where they're helping individuals to become truck drivers. But that's also becoming one of those key areas where there are conversations around allowing for AI to take over the truck driving industry. So we're being very mindful of not curtailing innovation, but also not pushing individuals out of the workforce, while also meeting the demands and needs of tomorrow. And the same can also be said as far as like splicing at Northern Virginia Community College and opportunities that have been presented, recognizing that latency is key to this Northern Virginia region.
Thank you. Okay. Question 2. What can you do in the U.S.? Oh gosh. I think I know these by heart by now, right? I'm sure you guys do. What can you do in the U.S. Congress to ensure access to capital from microloans to lines of credit for minority businesses in your district and the Commonwealth generally? Because despite some state and federal programs, the help doesn't seem to be getting to the minority business owner, and there seems to be a disconnect between them and the various private lending institutions.
So recognizing that small businesses are a vital component to our local economy, access to capital absolutely remains a challenge for so many small business owners. And access is often stifled by the size of the loan, the age of a business, or the business's particular location, and oftentimes this disproportionately impacts minority business owners. And while the SBA has guaranteed loans through their particular programs, we recognize that those are limited, and that still doesn't mean that it comes without many hurdles that are affiliated with that. So for one, most people don't even realize that there are 2 SBA offices located within the 7th Congressional District to service the region. One that is specifically designed to meet the needs of contractors, federal contractors at that, and then the other to meet the needs of all other SBA. But I don't blame the residents. I don't blame the small business owners. I think that this is a fault of our system not being able to present this information and push it out and increase access and accessibility. So events such as this have been fantastic for us to share our stories, but also it'd be great if we had the ability for the SBA to push out this information and to make it more accessible and attainable for so many in this particular space and room. And that's something I'm committed to. So part of having those conversations and showing up in community is also understanding those needs. And I look forward to making sure that the SBA takes a greater, larger presence in the future. There also is a great deal of confusion around which particular SBA loan or program to even seek, because they've each been reauthorized versus there being a holistic reauthorization of SBA. And that's a bipartisan issue and a conversation that needs to happen, and I would fully support. And then lastly, I will just simply say, oh no, I won't have to just answer another question. I will simply say that at the state level, come July 1, we will have a new program that will be called Virginia Works, which is going to centralize all of the efforts around microloans, business, to make it a one-stop shop versus asking an individual, a small business owner, and placing that burden upon themselves to have to figure out where to go and seek that information.
Squeeze one more in.
Okay. Currently, the minimum wage in Virginia is $12 per hour, rising to $15 an hour in 2026. The federal minimum wage for non-exempt employees is $7.25 an hour. What are your thoughts on both the Virginia minimum wage and the federal minimum wage? If minimum wage were raised on either the state or federal level, how would you balance the possible burden on minority and small businesses?
Thank you for that question. So at the state level, I fully supported the increase of the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026, and I voted for it this past General Assembly session. And you'll frequently hear me say that I believe that everyone deserves a roof over their head, food on the table, access to quality healthcare, and hopefully just one job to pay for it all. And that's part of that component, making sure that our communities have what they need to thrive and to live within the community that they have established their roots. I absolutely support an increase in the minimum wage at the federal level. But again, for me, this goes back to making sure that we are meeting the needs of residents. Part of me pushing for paid family and medical leave entailed me having conversations with small business owners who are working to retain their workforce. And at times such as this, where so many are seeking how they can best keep their workforce for tomorrow and find the individuals that they need, it's going to require having conversation around benefits and access. And that's one of the easiest ways that we can provide that assistance, by not forcing businesses to find the way to finance that on their own, but providing state opportunities or national programs. And I'm a firm believer in supporting paid family medical leave at the state level and the federal level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I have a round of applause for all our candidates here today? All right, so each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to give their closing remarks. So we're going to go in the same order that the candidates were previously. So Margaret, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for those both here in person and virtually. This issue is critically important in terms of talking about the importance of delivering resources to our small businesses, particularly our minority-owned businesses. I don't think we've had any conversations in this type of forum throughout the entire election cycle, and I think it's pivotal that we focus on this issue. Again, just like to say, Margaret Franklin, I currently serve on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, spent 8 years on Capitol Hill in both the House and the Senate, worked hand in hand with lawmakers on the issues of small businesses, particularly our minority-owned firms. So I understand these issues, and more importantly, I understand how to get them done. In addition to that, again, serving the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, been effective in pushing for local ordinances as it relates to, we've talked somewhat about affordable housing, as we have a trust fund that we're funding to the tune of 25 million. So how do we use that in terms of supporting small businesses as well? I'll also just say that created a child advocacy center to help victims of child abuse, and also revitalized the Route 1 corridor, inputting almost $500 million in investments into the Route 1 corridor. I'll just leave with this. A lot of candidates, and I've said this before, you guys have to figure out not only who has the most experience, but who has been effective in addressing some of those issues. I'll also just say that, it's one thing to say we support issues and that we'll vote in support of issues, but I'll challenge you to ask us who will lead on an issue and who has actually led on an issue. So I actually just take those things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Guzman? Thank you.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes. There you go.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for hosting this event and allowing us to share our vision for the Congressional District 7. And special thanks to those who are connecting online and watching us. It's exactly that education and enthusiasm that we're going to need, to keep this Congressional District 7 blue. You could see that we have a great slate of candidates running for the nomination. However, I would like to highlight that I have the most experience legislatively, as I deliver for the Commonwealth for 6 years, from criminal justice reform to access to healthcare, to protect our freedoms, and to protect small businesses in the Commonwealth. I've been recognized as an effective legislator by the Richmond Times and the Washington Post. Congressional District 7 includes the I-95 corridor. So I look forward to working with you to fight for economic development and find more resources and business opportunities. We need to protect our freedoms that will allow businesses to get established on this Commonwealth, and work with you to expand that membership so we can see business owners of color thrive on this Commonwealth. I promise I will fight for opportunities for everyone on the Commonwealth. As the wife of a minority small business owner, I have seen firsthand the challenges and struggles that you face as a person of color on this Commonwealth. And I ensure that everyone will get access to economic success and promote prosperity for all of our communities. I'm ready to work for you, and we are living in a historic moment that you can help elect the first Latina, an immigrant, to represent the Commonwealth in Congress. And I'm ready to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bailey. There you go.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you again to the for this organization, the Chamber, for the wonderful work that you're doing in the community. I just come before you to say simply this: relationships matter. And when you have the right person or the right people at the table to assure that execution is done for the right reason, relationships matter. And so I come before you as an elected official, but also as a community leader, that my relationships with the federal electeds in Congress, my relationships with the state electeds in the General Assembly, my relationships with the local community leaders and constituents in Prince William County and the region has bode success and continuum of getting workforce development instituted in our high schools, has continued, as I said, as a advisor to GMU to change their programs, to have a shift in their programs, to assure that economic development is going forward. And so I honor the work that you're doing and the businesses that you own as a small business owner. I respect and understand that as we go forward, programs from the federal entity, funding from the federal entity, relationships from the federal entity and private industry is critical in moving forward to stimulate this economy. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate an opportunity for you to see and hear who I am as an elected official to serve in Congressional District 7.
Thank you.
So thank you again to the chamber. Look, election day, as we say, is 11 days in a wake up. So it's fast approaching. When you go to the voting booth, what you really ought to consider is the background and experience of the candidate, the values, and the resources. I've been endorsed by the Washington Post. I've been endorsed by over a half a dozen members in Congress, local officials, and my background and experience indicate that I understand small businesses, I understand technology, I understand what small businesses are facing, I understand the importance of education, I understand the community, having lived in this community for some time, I would say a long time for Northern Virginia standards, but certainly since 2016. And I've raised kids in the community. I also have the resources necessary to hold a seat. I'm the only Democrat that has been able to outraise the Republican frontrunner. And this is a tough district. It's a very purple district. It's a critical seat in order to win back the House of Representatives. And I am the person to do that. And when I arrive in Congress, I will use the relationships that I have established and knowledge and background that I've built over the course of decades to bring resources back to our district and support a thriving Northern Virginia community. So thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the Virginia Minority Chambers for hosting today's candidate forum. As shared earlier, I am Brianna Sewell. I am a current state delegate, and I am running to be your next Congresswoman here in the 7th Congressional District. I shared my story before, but I will reiterate the most important component of what I've said is that I feel that the next member of Congress has to be someone who understands the needs of this district, but most importantly is listening to the residents to make sure that they are part of what we can do and accomplish together. With that, I have a solid track record in Richmond of being able to be an effective legislator. I have been able to expand sexual assault protections for child victims. I have increased access to childcare and recognizing that this is impacting military readiness and also freeing up spots for other children to be able to enter into local opportunities for childcare access. We were able to pass paid family medical leave in the Commonwealth of Virginia for the first time after 6 years. And as you can imagine, I am just getting started. In my next step of service to the 7th Congressional District residents, I look forward to hearing your stories, working with you to identify our greatest challenges, and most importantly, effectively representing our district. For those who wish to learn more about me and our campaign, please visit briannaforcongress.com. I look forward to having the opportunity to engage with each of you after this, so thank you again.
Take your time. Just knock me out.
Thank you. I am Tanya Poindexter, the Chief Operating Officer of Virginia Minority Chambers, and I'm so glad I don't have to look over here at these green cards and have the timer go off like you guys did. So I don't have that pressure right now that you guys did. I want to start off by thanking you guys individually. So I'm going to just call you again because I think each of you again deserves an applaud. And I'm just going to call you as I see you. So Supervisor Franklin, thank you so much. I'm sorry, Eugene Finman, thank you so much. Brianna Sewell, thank you. Elizabeth Guzman, thank you. And Andrea Blailey, thank you so much. I want to thank you guys. And it was important that Virginia Minority Chambers hold this event today because we were able to bring everyone together. One of the great things and important things about today was that one of the priorities about bringing our partner chambers together, the Asian American Chamber, the Virginia Hispanic Chamber, and the Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, we have one shared priority, and that is the minority business community. And so I don't know if you noticed what we were discussing today. What was important was that we were talking about those priorities for business owners. What we realized is that in Virginia, more than 30% of the business community are minority owners. And so, yeah, that does deserve an applause. More than 30% of business owners in Virginia are minority owners. So we want to make sure that their needs are being addressed, that we are able to be a voice for those business owners. And so by doing that, we were able to bring those owners, those congressional candidates together to discuss and to hear what they have to say, to know that what they are, their priorities are going to be able to answer those things that we are important to us as business owners. So thank you for agreeing to be here, to allow us to provide a platform to discuss and share your values to our business owners. So with that being said, I also want to thank our audience today that's here in the room. It's important that you guys are here as well to get to have someone to talk to as well, because we know that you care. Okay, it's also important to be an informed voter. As Representative Spanberger said, June 18th is right around the corner. You need to be an informed voter. You need to know what you're voting for. Okay. I also want to thank our media person in the back, John Ledbetter, Sun Chase Media. Thank you. We are being live streamed today on all of our social media platforms. So thank you, John, for doing that, because this is an important message, and we want to make sure that everybody can hear everything that's being said today. So make sure you guys follow Virginia Minority Chambers on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We are going to be here. We're going to be steadfast in the community with our partner chambers, Northern Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, Asian American Chamber, and the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you guys for being here today, and we look forward to June 18th. Have a great one.
Thanks again. Hey,
Yeah.
it was tough.